Here we go.
And we are live at episode 161 here at FMA Discussion. And we're here, we're going to do a tandem, riding in tandem, not in a lethal way, because you know that's certain connotation in the Philippines. Me and Martin, and we're interviewing Anthony Kleeman. I hope I pronounced that correctly, sir. And John Mack of Doce Pares. I'm really looking forward to this interview because I have a lot of history questions. Take it away, sir.
Cool. Gentlemen, it's an honor to be interviewing you. I just want to say first off, my first contact with FMA was with the Cacoy Doce Pares system here in Canada. So I really respect the system. I learned a lot in the system, and I had the chance to go to the HQ in the Philippines and train with the GM Miko Cañete and Chuck Cañete, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, 1 week with them was like 1 year here, you know. So very nice people, very welcoming. So this is going to be fun. So first off, if you could just talk a bit about your background, each of you, not only in FMA, but if you have other martial arts background, what brought you to Filipino martial arts? The ball is yours. We can start with whoever you want.
You want to go, John, or you want me to go? I'll go.
I would like let SJM Anthony Kleeman to do it first.
All right, sure. So I guess I was like, I'm 57, so my background is directly attached to all of those movies that we used to go watch at the drive-in in the 1970s, right? So the first time I ever saw, you know, Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, I wanted to be Bruce Lee tomorrow, you know, as we all did, right? So the only game that was in my hometown though was a karate school, so that was what I joined with and started training in karate. And pretty soon thereafter, I started training modern Arnis because that was also incorporated into our school. So we had wrestling, we had karate, and we had modern Arnis. And then my teacher, Martin Gardner, in the early 80s, in 84, he traveled to Cebu for the first time and trained directly with Cacoy. And, you know, pretty interesting story. When Martin first went, he went to visit headquarters and he met with Cacoy, and Cacoy said, I don't teach anyone. So, you know, so Marty was there in Cebu for a month, and one of SGM Cacoy's top students, a guy called Tinong, Florentino Turcano, his nickname was Tinong. He followed Marty everywhere for like almost 12 days. Just followed him everywhere, went everywhere that he went and watched what he was doing. And, you know, foreigners don't always have a good reputation when they go to visit the Philippines, you know. Oftentimes they go there for partying, right? So they're chasing the girls, the drink, the whatever. So after this 10 or 12 day period, Cacoy was happy that Marty wasn't there to chase the girls and stuff. So he said, okay, you can come and train. So Marty started to train, and then for the first few days, he just got to train with the students on the mat, and Cacoy watched him, you know. And then for the last week or 10 days, he trained directly with Cacoy, and he brought back all the drills and the forms and the whatever that he could. And he started to show all of us back home in the club, and we started to train Cacoy Doce Pares. And then in mid-86, we brought Cacoy to Australia for the first time, and we had him in Australia for 12 weeks. And what was happening was that each weekend, my teacher Martin would take him to various cities around Australia to do seminars for maybe the police, maybe the military, maybe a martial arts organization. But during the week, we got to train with him in Alice Springs every afternoon from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. every night.
Wow.
So Monday through Friday. So we had a 12-week intensive sort of training every day with him. And that was kind of the foundation of the Australian connection with Cacoy Doce Pares. And, you know, we sort of became, in a lot of ways, the really first recognized club outside of the Philippines to be sort of sanctioned by Cacoy as being one of his clubs, you know. So that was back in 86. And, you know, we got involved in the first WCAF tournament. We got involved in many different things. We started also helping to train the army.
In Australia?
Many different things came out of that, yeah. I also trained a lot for many years with Benny the Jet Ukidis. I'm a kickboxer also. I did boxing. Obviously, my background in karate, martial arts wrestling. I've never trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as such, but I did a lot of years of wrestling. So anyway, different thing, but you know, in a similar vein. And I've basically, I can say this. I can say that training in Cebu radically changed my relationship to martial arts training in general. It made me see that these arts were not just anachronistic practices. It let me see that they were alive and they were real and that they were valid and that they were continuing to grow.
That's interesting.
And, you know, it was through my association, obviously, with Cebu that I got to meet John for the first time back in 1996 when he came here to compete in, I think it was the 3rd or the 4th WCAF World Championships. And John actually won the lightweight. He was a killer. John's always been a killer. But, you know, so I've known John since 1996 and we've remained pretty tight friends ever since. And, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for John. And, you know, to me, my take on it is the main 3 players at headquarters in today's world is basically Chuck Cañete, John Mack, and Nico Cañete. So they're the 3 core players at headquarters, and they're all very capable. And from my point of view, headquarters is in very good hands right now. So, but anyway, John, you got to say some words, mate.
Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank you also to our host, Martin and Julius, for this opportunity. And good day to the viewers of the FMA discussions. And okay, so just a little bit of background of myself. I grew up in Mindanao. And as you know, Mindanao is the battlefield for the soldiers. So as a young boy, I never know that I have the bloodline of martial artists because we came from the family of boxers. So my grandfather, he's a boxer. All my uncles, they were boxers. That is how they earn money during their time on to fight and earn a bit for living. Then my father also always brought me to watch some boxing fights and or boxing movies. Then we have a lot of universities in the Visayas and Luzon, but mostly Visayas. Our soldiers from Mindanao, they are from Mindanao actually, but they study criminology in Visayas. So the late Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete, he's teaching for 20 years for defense and tactics in criminology in some of the universities here in Visayas. And when after finishing the school, so they go back to their places, Mindanao, and from there they will be tested what they have learned as a military, as a policeman, as a soldier. So they always brought us a story about the Cacoy Canete. So Cacoy Canete is really very famous in Mindanao. So it's just I just heard a lot about his name. He's really famous, winning a lot of battle fights in Escrima, because those people witnessing the fight of the late Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete while he is in Visayas. So while they are studying in Visayas as a criminology, they witnessed some of these fights. So from that on, I'd like to get interested to learn and see how Cacoy Canete looks like, because from the movie, if you see him a fighter, you have a lot of battle scars in the face. So it means that he's really a fighter because there's a lot of battle scars. So I want to see this great escrimadors, Cacoy Canete, and in my imagination, probably he has a lot of battle scars always on the face. So to make the story short, I met a guy from Germany, also Doce Pares, Master of Wars. So he's the one who give me link on the way to Cebu City, where the headquarters are headquarters of the Cacoy Canete Doce Pares. So I started there at the year 1992, and at that time only few members were there. It's about only 4 or 3 people practicing, but I just keep going, continue practicing, and that's how I met also Senior Grandmaster Kleeman. From time to time, he visited the headquarters, so I know that they're gonna have private lessons with the Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete. So I have to cut class from the university just to attend their few lessons, because I know it's different. So I could sense that a lot of techniques and drills when the Cacoy Canete teaching these techniques is really important for me. So I have to really attend most of their private lessons with the Senior Grandmaster Anthony. So yes, until now I love the art. I'm fascinated with the weapons, especially the way the late Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete deliver the strikes. It's really tremendously fascinating and very effective and direct, very practical, very simple, very practical. So with those days, I am the receiving end. So I know how does it feel to be a receiving end.
Yeah,
And,
so many videos with you and Supreme Grandmaster getting beat up.
Sorry, I'm just laughing.
So
Continue.
for those punishments, I learned a lot, and no regret at all. In the beginning, I have a teary eye. No, like, what is this? This is not what I've seen in the movie. In the movie, they have to make a line, do the drills, the katas, but here, just beating me up is not fun. But I have to endure all those because of my ambition, because of my love of the arts and about the weapons. That's all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it
Daghang
was a
salamat,
real
Bay.
thing with him, huh?
Yeah, daghang salamat. I was gonna say, we're in Mindanao. Saan sa Mindanao? Where in Mindanao did you grow up?
From Malay-Balay, Bukidnon. It's a northern region of Mindanao. Yeah.
That's a very pretty place. Very close to nature. Everything's green. So
Yes, we have a very.
What? Did he cut off?
No.
Did he cut off?
I don't
Yes,
think so.
we have a very green scenery. Now we have a lot of mountains in Mindanao. Yeah, you're right.
You can
Cool.
continue, Martin. Continue with your question.
Yeah, all right. So for the viewers who are not sure about who is Supreme Grandmaster Ciriaco Cacoy Canete, who is Cacoy Canete? So maybe we can start back to GM Kleeman. Then if GM John Mack, you want to add something, you can add something. But who is Cacoy Canete for the viewers who don't know?
Yeah, well, I guess I would say that Cacoy Canete is really one of the most significant martial arts practitioners of the 20th century.
Definitely.
And he had a martial arts career that spanned longer than most people live. So you got to remember that SGM was born in 1919, and he started training in 1925. So he was 6 years old when he started training, and he died at the age of 96. So that's 90 years of continuous training, development, etc., etc. So he learned boxing, he learned wrestling, he learned eskrima. And later in life, he went into elements like aikido and karate and kung fu, etc. But from his very earliest days, he learned boxing. All the boys in the Cañete family learned boxing. It was very common in the Philippines for young men to be boxers. And Cacoy was a good boxer. And in fact, in high school, before he graduated high school, he became the all sort of high school champion in Cebu City, right? So he really had some skills in that area. And one of the things that we tend to think of in, I'm talking about in the 20th century, 21st century, when we think of somebody who was a real innovator, one of the people that comes to mind most quickly is someone like Bruce Lee, because he took elements from fencing, Wing Chun, boxing, Filipino martial arts, Japanese and Korean martial arts, and he melded them together into a system. And most people think that was sort of a very unique thing. Well, there were many people that were doing that, but Cacoy was doing that from the 1930s onwards, right? So even though he wasn't known, but in many ways, many of the skills that he worked on and developed, he started developing the system within the system that is called Escrido. That started to be developed in the 1940s, and it was about a 15-year development period in which the most of the structure of the Escrido system was developed. And when you start to understand Escrido, I think you spend your whole life trying to learn Escrido and trying to understand it fully. But when you pursue it, you realize how huge it is, and it combines almost every kind of element of attack and defense you can imagine. And it's huge. It's a huge martial arts system. That's one of the reasons, that I fell in love with it. I know that John fell in love with it for the same reason. And Cacoy Canete is like I already said, he had 90 years of training when he died, right? 90 years. Most people don't even live in that, right? So he also, his training spanned decades where the world was in an uproar, right? So he went through the Great Depression, he went through World War II, he went through the post-war period, post-war boom years, etc. And remember, in World War II, before the war, he was commissioned as a lieutenant in the army, and then he became a guerrilla fighter. He went up into the mountains with a bunch of the other masters from the Doce Pares organization at the time. And it was pretty brutal stuff. There was guerrilla mountain fighters. They lived in the hills out of civilization for 3 or 4 years. And it was tough stuff. And the Japanese fought them. It was brutal. They were tortured and executed, right? So it was, he had that as a part of his background, part of his life experience, right? He he was a jiu-jitsu practitioner. He was a judo practitioner. So his story is huge, but also his skill level is huge, and the base of knowledge that he drew from is huge. And my take on what Cacoy did with the basis of Eskrima, when Cacoy was a young man, when he was still a teenager or in his early 20s, his older brother Momoy would use him as his main training dummy, and Cacoy was the one that had to be the fall guy for everything, right? And one of the demos or one of the tools that Momoy worked on was the bullwhip. He had the bullwhip. He trained the bullwhip and he used it as a weapon. So Cacoy was the one that had to stand over there and hold the stick and then get smacked with a whip, right? And so after the war, Cacoy said, they wanted to go back to this old way of doing things. And Cacoy said, no more. And he started to, and also at that time, this concept of dueling or the death match started to come out after the war, right? It started to really become prevalent. And if you were a decent escrimador, you better be able to back up your so-called reputation with skills and abilities, And Cacoy, that's how come Cacoy came to end up fighting so many matches over the decades, right? So from the 1940s right through to the 1980s, he was fighting, especially in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, he was fighting all the time. So, he fought many different guys from many different styles, all who were pretty sure that they had the stuff, that they were the new thing, and they weren't, right? He beat them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not only people from Eskrima were challenging him, but people from different martial arts background also, right? And he would always accept.
There was a story that he used to tell us about how in the 1970s he was doing a demonstration in Cebu, and at one of the shopping centers, and a Japanese guy put his hand up and said, I think my Shinai training, my Kendo training is better than your Escrido." So they brought him up on stage and put a big long stick in his hand, and then Cacoy gave him a thrashing in front of the audience, you know. So the point is that Cacoy had this otherworldly almost ability with what he did, because you know, I often say that, you know, we've all seen the movie Karate Kid, and the Mr. Miyagi character, or we've all seen Star Wars and we've seen the Yoda character. Well, Cacoy was a lot like those kind of people. He was quiet spoken in many ways. He loved to tell a joke. He was very gregarious and very approachable, but at the same time, the man was lethal. And, you know, when I first met him back in 1986, I'm 24 years old. You know, I'm 6'4". I'm a fairly husky sort of a dude.
You're George Foreman proportions.
Yeah, and Cacoy, basically, I crossed sticks with him for the first time, thinking, oh yeah, this 67-year-old man, I wonder what he can do. He gave me I became a believer in about 15 seconds, right? So once I'd been disarmed and thrown to the ground and then put stripes all over me, I thought, uh-oh, this is a whole new realm of possibility here. You know, this is way beyond. You know, he struck at me with a full blast strike towards my face and missed my nose by a quarter of an inch. And if that would have hit me, it would have ripped my nose off. You know, but he had that sort of control. He could blitz and fire and just come with tremendous ferocious energy and not really hurt you. You know, and yet if he went that much further, he'd be pounding the tar out of you. You know, so that was kind of the first time. I don't think I've ever met anyone actually since that had that level of mastery in anything.
That's very curious that you would say that, because a lot of that generation of escrimadors, they had a lot of depth perception training. They were very good at the controlled strikes, where they would throw a strike when they're doing the instruction and they would miss maybe half an inch to someone's, you know, face or the target. That's something that's not trained so much anymore. And that's what I was actually going to ask you two. And, you know, it doesn't matter. You, sir, Mr. Kleeman, or John Mack can answer this. Can I ask them my first question, Martin?
Of course, go ahead.
What methodologies do you use to that Largo to Corto gap? Because the thing is, he liked to fight in close. And obviously, you know, he created the system, as you said, within that 15-year time gap period, you know, during the war. So you're fighting a non-cooperative opponent that has the intention to kill you, but his preferred range is here, you know, it's in a phone booth, probably because of the judo and boxing background that he had. But I want to know how you're able to bridge that gap. What methodologies or modalities do you use to close in that Largo to Corto game?
Did you want to answer that, John, or you want me to keep you should answer this and I'll pick up on what you say, yeah?
Okay, so for his experience, he's teaching defense and tactics in the criminology, also about his military background during guerrillas. So he has a lot of battle experience, so he knows what he's going to do. Then one time there was a little bit about politics about the eskrima, so he's preparing for a fight. Then he asked me to come over to practice the fighting strategies, whatever. Then I expect a lot of sparring then, so I was like, okay, this fight preparation, so it's gonna be hard, tough, and sparring close quarter. Then I am wrong, because he started long range. Then he told me, John, put gloves on your left hand. So we're about 2 meters away or 3 meters away. Then put your left hand on your back. So I place my left hand on my back, and I'm holding my stick like this. Then he says, John, swing your left hand out from your back. So I swing my left hand out from my back, and he just hit it with palm. very powerful snap to my left hand. Then after hitting my left hand, it goes straight to my nose, the stick, so to my face. So left hand and face. So basically, it's about first hitting what is the advantage of the opponent, either the right hand or the left hand, before he come close. Because in the close quarter system, he knows that most of the fighters would not like to come closer to him because he's a close quarter fighter. That is his specialty. So it would always start from the distance. So from the distance to bridge the gap, you have to hit or defang the weapons, which is the first target. The first target is your the closest to your stick before you go close. And also in my case, I also try to study about traditional and sports. In traditional, people can demonstrate a lot of twirling, about combinations. They can make, how do you call that? Amara, or we call that calandratas. So it's really pretty to see some people can perform a very nice Amara or any combination of strikes. That is really cool. But once you surprise him in a real hard fight, once you surprise him, close the gap, those Amara doesn't work. It becomes like this. It becomes just swinging the stick, hitting you hard, whacking you to the head, whacking to the body. So that means that once you surprise your opponent, he will deliver different combinations. He will deliver different attacks. Why? Because you are too close. He just wants to whack your head. So that's how do I bridge the gap. I surprise him. Then I will see his first reactions. His first reactions is to whack my head, to whack my body. I will defend and block and do my counter attacks. So that's how do I bridge the gap from long range to close range.
Very interesting.
On a basic level, we have about 3 different blitz combinations that you use from long range initially. So there are ways of bridging the gap to come in. And again, one of the things Cacoy would talk about when, from his early fights and stuff, was many people wanted to fight long range. They wanted to try, so the problem with long range and with medium range is that it's an exchange range, right? My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. And it's pretty punishing, especially in medium range. If you're trying to fight in medium range, you may win the match, but you're going to get pretty heavily damaged in the process. It's just the way it's going to go. So the only way to really dominate the fight is to get in close and make it happen in there. But the other thing is that at long range, at least you have the range on your side, which means you can be elusive and evasive and deceptive in the way you attack. But medium range, it's a damaging range, because anything that your opponent shoots at you, you have to stop it. Otherwise, you're getting hit, right? And anything he hits you with, you got to try and counter hit off. So it's a tough range to fight at. So Cacoy would fight in close, but there's also ways of controlling range. You can latch your partner's arms. You can also foot trap them so they can't step away. Because one of the things that when you jump on somebody in close, they're going to do one of 2 things. They either want to jump away from you to try and get gap, or they're going to try and close and grapple with you or lock onto you. And both of them are good things, because if you're going to try and jump back and you foot trap them, they're going to lose their balance. If they try and come into you, you start to use Escrido, So that's the way that goes.
Interesting. So you guys have been talking a lot about cross training. It's good because there's a lot of different questions I wanted to ask that you already touched. So it's perfect.
Did he cut off?
So Mr. Cacoy Canete was a big fan of cross training, and it shows in the development of his system. Especially in the logo, you see Escrima, Panyamat, and Escrido. We'll get back a bit later about the Escrido because some people may not know what it is. But about the Cacoy Doce Pares system, how does it differ from the Doce Pares system, and why at some point it's separated from and created its own federation? So Doce Pares system, Cacoy Doce Pares federation, why did it separate, and what is the main difference, or what are the main differences between the two systems?
So Cacoy Doce Pares is essentially, all right, so that it's a long story, but I'll sort of condense it as much as I can. So one of the things that happened, I said earlier, how when Cacoy was a very young man, he became this fall guy for Momoy, for example. And he was the guy that got all the beatings in public in front of when they did demonstrations, right? So when he changed the way that things were done, after the war, he became the champion. He became the one that accepted all the challenges. When anyone came from, out of town or around town or interstate or whatever to pick a fight with Doce Pares, Cacoy would take the fight. So Cacoy was a very intelligent guy. He was also very well rounded in martial arts, and he took Eskrima. The path he took with Eskrima was he took the path of developing Eskrima much more like boxing, as opposed to being like a long-range fencing system, right? So when you see John or myself, or when we start sparring in close range, it's much more like if you're in close range and you're thinking, you're usually getting hit because you don't have really time to think. You have to move and react and influence what's going on. Much like boxing. If you're in boxing and you're getting close to somebody and you think, I'll try and hit him with a right uppercut and a left hook, it's already too late. You already got hit with a right uppercut and left hook. It's too late, right? You can't be thinking. You got to be reacting and responding, hitting what's there. Well, that's what you do in Cacoy Doce Pares. You hit what's there. Somebody puts a hand up, you jump around the hand. You counter them, right? Somebody tries to catch or control, you break the catch, control, and counter them, and put a lock on it, put them down. So Cacoy took Eskrima and turned it into much more like boxing. Like, to me, one of the best empty-hand fighting arts there is boxing. I mean, boxing has had a couple of 100 years of evolution, and it's gone from being this to being very sophisticated, right?
Yeah.
Well, Cacoy did essentially the same thing with Eskrima. So one of the things that Cacoy had as an advantage over many of these masters from other systems is many systems did a lot of drilling, did a lot of double stick drills, they did a lot of Sinawali, a lot of counter drills, all that, but they didn't necessarily pressure test it in the way you would if you were boxing, right? But Cacoy always pressure tested everything. And that's why in class, when you go to headquarters or you come and train with me or whatever, part of what we do is we're doing sparring. Why are we sparring? Because you have to get beyond the drill. The drill is only a stepping stone to get to fluidity, right? And you only can get fluid if you allow yourself to spar. So the one thing that does happen though sometimes is that you get some people who they got to win. They have that, I have to win, right? If you end up with the one that has to win, they're going to get a lot of lumps on them because, you can't let somebody walk in the door and want to win and then, you're going to play nice. No, it's going to get nasty, but that's the way that goes, Hopefully they either cool it and learn that they don't have to try and win all the time, or they don't come back again, John, you want to add something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with the Senior Grandmaster Kleeman. I'll just add a little bit. So Sir Cacoy started boxing at the age of 5. So from that point of view, he knows what it look like if you gonna be hit or you hit your opponent. So in his division, there were about 12 boxers, and this 12, only one boxer that he could not knock out because it's too elusive. So the same in Eskrima, you cannot be fancy. So he has that kind of background. You cannot be fancy. You have to hit your opponent. because in Eskrima, once you hit your opponent, fight is over. So he always saying that in Eskrima, it will not last long. Real fight in Eskrima, it's only 10 seconds is over. So that is the attitude of his system or his style. So the style is you have to look opportunity where that you can hit your opponent and make him suffer or finish the bout immediately.
Cool.
Another element too that we do too is that in Eskrima, in Cacoy Eskrima, we treat the stick as a complete weapon, right? So we don't just try and hit with the fore end of the stick. We treat the stick as a complete weapon. So we use the whole thing and the butt as well. So the whole thing is a tool for fighting with, right? So if you're practicing a long range style of Eskrima, it tends to be this part of the stick does all the work, just the fore end, right? But in our system, we use the whole stick, right? So we get in close, we use the butt. We use the butt also for locking and controlling. The whole stick for locks, control, and hold. We're also striking with the whole stick. Thrusting, butting, witik, Kubada, you know. So the difference is that the weapon becomes a complete weapon. We can also use it two-handed if we need to, right? So that's one of the critical breakthroughs, I think, too, was the evolution of the way the stick was used. So as John was saying, you can watch somebody who does Amara, and it can be really beautiful to watch, and it can be very artistic.
TikTok.
But that doesn't necessarily translate into combativeness, you know? So as a part of your early training in what we do, everyone learns to move and be smooth, because that's critical to sort of giving you a foundational level of movement, but you need to morph from that into making it combative, you know? Yeah.
Interesting. So questions from Victor Violet Rodriguez. What is the Corto Kubada style? Could you explain to the viewers the Corto Kubada style from
That's
Cacoy Canete?
That's one of my questions anyway. So that's perfect that he touched up on that.
You want to do that, John, or you want me to answer? We both, you start and I'll finish, or whatever.
You start first, say your caption, Anthony, then I will add a bit to that.
There's two really intrinsic parts of fighting in close, you know, Corto Kubada. So Kubada really refers to the concept of using curving strikes, right? As opposed to linear strikes. You can use the curving strike to wrap around and hit something, right? So when you're close to somebody, instead of just the attack that you're attacking them with coming from in front of them, suddenly you can be attacking them from behind also in close. So Corto Kubada, together with witik, or you know, also known as abanico, these kinds of shots, these kinds of strikes, this is all a part of the blending of technique that goes into making it. You know, when you stepped in and started sparring with Cacoy, or when you step in now and you spar with John Mack, it's like stepping into a blender. You know, you're getting hit from every angle you can imagine, and it's happening at 125 miles an hour. You know, so it's Corto Kubada is very dominating, it's almost like if you take the lead, you've got the lead, you've got the win, you know, because it's very hard to catch up. Once you're trying to start to play catch up, you're losing, right? So
yeah, I did some sparring with Miko Cañete and Shot Cañete. It's exactly like being in the blender. Same thing.
Yeah. And, you know, and people also misunderstand. So, you know, from a Western point of view, Western mindset might say that, you know, holding a baseball bat and swinging this way, that is powerful, right? And that certainly is powerful. That's one form of power. But people don't necessarily equate the armora or the Kubada or the witik as being powerful. But when you train them properly and you start putting a lot of body energy behind it, you can deliver a massive amount of power in those short, hard blasts. So, you know, when I shoot a shot and I control it and don't hit, that doesn't necessarily transfer it. But if you get on the tire stack or a dummy, or even you put a partner in with a headgear and a body protector on and start really loading on them, they realize they're really getting hit hard, you know, and so it makes a huge difference, you know. Yeah, so the Corto Kubada is the cornerstone of that sets up disarms and Escrido also. So actually, it's almost two systems. Cacoy Doce Pares has the basic system, which is the strike block eskrima, which is very effective as a basic training system. And then you evolve into the Corto Kubada, which is the in-close fighting system that incorporates disarming and Escrido, right?
So would you say
No,
that the
I'll hand
first system comes more like from the Doce Pares and the Corto Kubada? This is really the Cacoy Doce Pares flavor?
Yeah, well, I mean, Cacoy also changed all of the numbering system too. So his numbering system, he in the 40s, he went away from the classic Doce Pares numbering system. So the classic Doce Pares numbering system that Momo used was very oriented towards stick and dagger, right? It was a very stick and dagger numbering system. It works really well for stick and dagger. But Cacoy went into the single stick, right? Heavily into the single stick. And that was where he changed things because it needed to be functionally correct. It needed to be functional, right? So if I'm teaching you boxing, here's a jab, here's a cross, here's a left hook, here's a right hook, here's an uppercut, you know. Well, he did the sort of the same thing with the eskrima. Here's, you know, same kind of angling concepts, you know.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Anything to add, Grandmaster John Mac?
Okay, so in Corto, it is close. So that is we call it dikit. So where your fist can touch the body. So that is the distance. So if I extend my fist can touch the body of my opponent. That is the distance. So in Kubada is curving strikes or pronating strikes. So in the close distance, it's amazingly that you can maneuver the stick that your opponent could not touch it, could not even hold it in a very close distance. So that is the practice of the Cacoy Doce Pares. It's difficult to control the stick or the right hand in a very close distance. Then one question is about how about if he deliver a strike to the face with the left hand, he can punch, he can elbow, yes, everything involved in there. So you have to be very fast, very, very quick, that before he can apply those, fight is over. Then when it comes to close, people says, why someone will not just take you to the ground or tackle you, shoot you, then bring you to the ground? Yes, you can. But you have to consider as well that when you do that, you have to trap the stick. You have to eliminate the stick before you shoot, because if ever this one can poke to your head, poke your eye, you cannot do that. But because your mindset, your thinking is only a sport, not harming you. But in eskrima, it's about survival. If you ever do that to me, I have options not to harm you, or I have to protect my art. I have to protect my skills. That my skills, this eskrima, can work even you are a wrestler or whatever, because I can poke your eye. I can hit your head with a butt strike. That's enough. Can knock you out. So that's why when it comes to close, sometimes you say, why you don't just tackle him to the ground? Yes, you can. But you have to eliminate the stick. You have to control the stick. So in a way, sometimes in our training, we try to have some partitions, eliminate those, because we are practicing, we are trying to developing the skills that this becomes more effective when it comes to this situation. So we don't need to really just let go the stick and go grapple your opponent or take down your opponent. No, we are practicing. That's why it's eskrima. we are practicing to be more skillful with the stick against all this kind of counter attacks, elbow punching or takedowns. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, well, you touched a bit about it with what you were saying, Grandmaster John Mack. So let's go to that question. Let's say, because it's not only that, it's a big generalization, but let's say martial arts in general, every martial arts style, not only Filipino martial arts, fall into three categories: the traditional arts, the combat sports category, and the combatives or self-defense category. Of course, one martial arts can do more than one of those three spheres. So self-defense and combatives, combat sports, or traditional art. In which sphere or which category or categories would you say the Cacoy Doce Pares system fall in? Combat sports, combatives, or traditional art?
Is that for who's that, John? Oh, okay.
Whoever wants to answer.
Well, I think Cacoy, back in the 80s, especially, Cacoy had this thing where he would say, you know, if you're a black belt under me and somebody challenges you to a fight and you don't accept the fight, I'll ask you to hand your belt back, you know. So his thing was, he was very much that way, really quite strict about the whole concept of, you know, his martial arts system was meant to be practical and usable. It wasn't meant to be, you know, something you put on a shelf or something you practice for cultural reasons or whatever. It was meant to be a practical, usable system. And that's one of the things that I took away too from training all those years with the SGM was that the way that he looked and the filter that he looked at martial arts through was, you know, these arts are meant to be functional and workable. So you don't necessarily need a lot of flash and pizzazz, although that can be cool to watch. But you need to really adhere to what's functional. So what I would say is that Cacoy Doce Pares can be sporting. It can be a sports-oriented system. It can be just traditional. You can do lots of forms and lots of demo stuff. And you can do lots of stuff that's very combative. It's really all three, but it kind of comes a bit down to the individual practitioner as to what you want to do, really, or the way you want to pursue it, you know. So, I mean, John and I have both fought in multiple world championships over the years. You know, I'm getting long in the tooth for being a sportsman, but I'm the way that my relationship with what I do has changed is I've gone much more into the practical, tactical sort of combative orientation as I've morphed out of the context, you know. So yeah,
that's why I asked the questions, because I knew you were oriented towards combatives and self-defense a lot, and I knew that of course Cacoy Canete was in the army and did the real duels with the stick, so it was really practical. But at the same time, I know that there's a big sport element, which is awesome for the Cacoy Doce Pares system. So that's why I asked the question. But like you said, it touches like all three categories. It depends on the practitioner, actually.
Well, one of the critical things that John has been working on a lot in the last several years is so with Sport Escrima with the gear, you got a headgear, you got a body protector, you got gloves, you got all that stuff. There tends to be a limited range of techniques that works, and it tends to be, you know, a lot of blitzing, right? One side fires a lot, the other side fires a lot, and it's almost whoever has the most overwhelming offense will tend to be judged the winner, right? Now that's okay. That's an okay way of competing, but one of the things that Cacoy worked very heavily on, and one of the things that he became most known for, was the concept of Escrido, Corto Kubada, and Escrido. So one of the things John's been working on a lot over the last several years is the concept of bringing Escrido and Corto Kubada into a competition ring, right? In making it part of the art. So, you know, if you think back to, for example, with Taekwondo in years gone by, back in the 1960s and 70s, Taekwondo was very much an all-round martial art. They had board breaking, they had kicking, punching, they had all these different elements going on. Now, with the advent of Olympic-style Taekwondo, it's all become a high-speed game of tag with the legs, you know.
Yeah, it's like target practice. Yeah.
Right, but it's not. It's lost a lot of elements that used to be
Yeah.
in the art and no longer there. Right.
Yeah.
So what I see is that we need to incorporate the Escrido in our competitions as well, so that we keep that as a part of what we do. You know, otherwise we can fall into the danger the same way that Taekwondo has, which it becomes a high-speed game of tag, and whoever has the best offense will win the day. You know, and that's not really real anymore. That's become a high-speed game of tag. So, John, so what we've started to do is working on having limited protection, like relatively lightweight headgear, groin protection, and that's about it. And then you're using a stick. Maybe it's a heavier stick with padding, or maybe it's just a lightweight stick. And then you're going to use a limited range of techniques, because with Escrido, some techniques are very destructive, right? Some of them are strangle techniques, some of them are leg techniques, etc. And if you're going to use them in competition, in a competition situation, the chances are you're going to injure somebody pretty badly. So there's a range of techniques that we practice that you can't use in competition, simply because you don't want to injure somebody, give somebody a permanent injury or something, right? So John's been working on this, and I think this is one of the most important coming things that we've got going at the moment, is that this idea of competition, but using many elements of what Cacoy worked on in his lifetime, which is the Corto Kubada and the Escrido, and then morphing that into a sport. So John might want to talk some more about that.
Interesting. Grandmaster John Mack, could you expand a bit more on Escrido? What is Escrido for the viewers who don't know? Because that's very specific to your system.
Okay, so we have here in the Cacoy Canete Doce Pares system, we like to play with no protections. So that's why we have a controlled striking. So controlled striking, just that you feel the bumps, just feel the hit to the body, but it doesn't really cause so much damage. And here comes with the sports. In the sports, you have protections, head, helmet, you have body armor, and everything. You just go there, and for safety, you have to put your a lot of protections to your body. So in that case, in the sports competitions, becomes like I can hit you, you can hit me. So it never it doesn't care about anymore about defense. So the evaluations or the decisions sometimes can be wrong, or can be bad, can be good or bad, just like that. So in my perspective, when I'm doing a traditional eskrima, like traditional or defense eskrima, when it comes to sports, I have to follow the same. I have to make it more realistic. I want to implement, apply what I have learned from the traditional way of training in my eskrima. I want to bring it into the sports. So in a sports competition nowadays, you just hit back and forth. So yes, I admit that you can hit me, but my mission is to minimize, eliminate that, so I can really protect myself. So when it comes to the street, it becomes a habit. So if I will go to the street, someone will attack me, it becomes a more habit to defend, disarm your opponent, or strike back to your opponent immediately. So that is what I want. That is my perspective about my how do I handle myself into a sports competitions. Then because of that, I like to bring the sports Escrido, because in the sports Escrido is takedowns. So you can take down your opponent using neck lock, or neck trunk, or wrist lock. You can throw that way, or you can just simply apply foot sweep, or just typical judo throws. But in Escrido, we use the stick as the leverage. We use the stick to fulfill or to achieve the goal, to take him down. So that is the Escrido. So the throwing opponent using shoulder throw is it's good, but we're trying to change that with the stick. Use the stick as your leverage to throw your opponent. So in this sport Escrido, we have striking, then throw your opponent. So in a way, in the street, you can apply the same. So you can hit your opponent and take him down and put him into lock. So that is the ambition. That's why we're trying to bring the sports Escrido into the competitions. And in a way, it's also a part of study. In the future, techniques will come more. Techniques will come more. Then we will add on that to the our rules that we can use. This is a legitimate techniques can be applied in this sports Escrido. Yes, so Escrido is a combination of Aikido, Judo, and Jiu-Jitsu. So that is involved with sticks. So you can use the stick to pin down and throw your opponent or lock him down. Or yes, that is the Escrido. Thank you.
I just want to give a shout out to the people, the viewership, because you have a couple that are a member of your organization here. Catherine Lara Sumter, hi. Chad Bailey from Florida. Michael Stavley from Miami. Brian, one of our team, Brian Rodriguez. Alex Ursha, I think he went over there and visited you because he's saying, Kamusta, GM John Mack. Lalo Palomares, and of course, Dean. And then Ernesto Sanchez Infante, Scott Baird, and Tom Edison Pena. So, and Dan Haney. So just acknowledging our viewership. Continue, Martin.
Yeah, Chad Bailey is there also, I think, and his questions will be right after the next one. He sent a couple of questions, very interesting questions. But just before his questions, some people, not everybody, some people say that in the FMA systems, some systems will focus more on drills and other system will focus more on attributes development. If you had to choose one or the other, which one is Cacoy Doce Pares? Do you focus in the training? Do you focus more on drills or more on attributes, in your opinion?
Well, I think so. There's drills and there's drills, right? So some drills are purely for artistic purposes, and some drills are for developing attributes. So one of the things that, like I said, Cacoy's Escrima was very much like boxing. So nothing was wasted, right? There was no superfluous movement and there was no wasted defensive movement. Everything was functional. Well, I think the drills that we train tend to be when you first get somebody, when a student first comes and let's say they're a blank slate, they have no martial arts background of any kind at all. So they're coming with zero. You need to give them some kind of a structure to get them aware of their body and how they move and how they relate to their body. But then you need to morph that from that basic functional movement and basic functional awareness. You need to morph that into making it more practical. So a lot of the drills that we do as they get more advanced, they become very reactionary, very much, blocks and counters, blocks, counters, multiple counters, blocks, multiple counters into disarms, block, multiple counters into disarms or escridos, always going for that next thing. And, I would say that on balance, we tend to go much more into the element of being functional as opposed to perfect, right? So one of my things, like when I started training in the Korean martial arts way back in the 1970s, it was really easy to get sidetracked into perfection, right? There's the perfect position to hold your hands when you're doing a punch or a block or a whatever, right? And the perfect foot position, and the perfect cat stance, and the perfect this. The perfect
and your
that.
foot has to be like this and not like this on the ground.
Yeah. All of that stuff, right? Now, it's interesting, and it's good if it's going to be done as a floor routine, but that doesn't serve you if someone's trying to rip your head off, So the difference is that Cacoy's orientation was he was much more oriented towards being the techniques being practical, usable, and functional as opposed to perfect. And that's like boxing. Boxing's the same. You might learn to do a perfect jab cross hook in the mirror, but when you're in the ring fighting somebody, it doesn't look quite the same. But it is the same technique, But it changes, depending on who your opponent is and how they're fighting and whatever. So our Escrima is the same. It changes and adapts to the situation we're in.
I like what you said, functional versus perfection. That's really good to oppose different martial arts that exist nowadays. That's really nice. I'm gonna remember that. Anything to add, Grandmaster John Mack, before we go to Chad Bailey's questions?
Yes, so for us during our regular training, drills is just to memorize the techniques. So it's kind of warm ups, and also just to understand the effectivity of the techniques. Then we have a short period of time for drills to memorize the techniques, and we always go straight for the palusot. Palusot, or that is a controlled freestyle flow drill, or we call that controlled sparring. So palusot, palot sanay. So that is what we call.
Cool.
Thank you.
Before we get to chat, I do have one question, just so that maybe they could do like a short demo of like 1 or 2 techniques.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just plug my computer before I look like a newbie and it closes, and I'll be right back.
No worries, no worries. Please show the entries, striking, and upper arm compression snake sit modalities and their applications, so that the viewers could have a general idea of what we're talking about. Typically, that's the language that you use when you talk about that.
Sorry, my dog's barking at the neighbors. Hang on.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
I can grab my son and I can do a couple of techniques for you if you want.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When I do that, I will have to minimize both of me and John and also Martin. But I'll bring you guys back. Okay. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna expand your screen, like that, and then we're gonna disappear for a short while.
Quick question, Julius. So what would you like me to actually show you? You want me to show you the concept of disarming an Escridos, or what is it you want to see?
Snake disarm, arm compression, and then the destruction of the structure, like kind of like your modality of destroying the structure. So I'm gonna minimize you and Martin for now, right? And then I will minimize myself. We'll be gone for like a few seconds because he's gonna do. I don't have to expand his screen.
Hey, Jackson. We're on.
Martin, I'm gonna minimize both of us, okay?
Okay, we're gonna do something.
Okay, so I'm gonna minimize myself, so I'm not gonna be able to respond to you for like a few minutes. Okay?
Not a problem. I'm just gonna try and position us so that we're so. Oh, there we go. Good, awesome. Let's bring it around there. Quick, man, we're on. So I'm going to show you some concepts and ideas from the Cacoy Doce Pares, and as you generally tend to know, a lot of people know that we tend to fight close range a lot of times. So I'm just going to bring my son Jackson in, and just over here, just over here. Good. So let's actually a little closer. There we go. Perfect. All right. So this is the range we're fighting at. So John was talking about range earlier on. So we have three basic concepts of range. We have long, medium, and close. So long range for us, if you just step back there, long range for us starts from where my stick can just touch Jackson's stick to where my stick can reach his hand. Medium range goes from here where I can touch his hand through to where my stick can just touch his body. And then close range starts here and ends once we get to here. All right, in this close. So if we're in this close range gap here, what's critical is that I'm always monitoring and starting to control his hand, right? Because if I'm not controlling his hand, as I'm striking him, he's striking me. Strike me down. So this is, who's winning this? No one's winning this. We're both getting pounded, right? So I'm going to start to control. I have to start to control his stick hand. So a basic control would be just latching where the stick and the hand meet, right? So this actual phase here, the hand and the stick right here, that would be a basic control, right? So I'm going to use the Wittig strikes, these Abanico style strikes, and I'm going to use the Kubada strikes, getting around his guard, right? So here's an example. If Jackson was to block this shot, and I'm doing conventional striking, he blocks it. But if I use Kubada, I curve around and I hit him anyway, right? So then I go Kubada and I come through and use Wittig to finish with. I got inside his guard, right? Same thing if I came from this side. I can use Kubada, I can clear his guard, and then I'm in on him, right? So an example here would be this limb here, the arm that's controlling his stick. This is really important to take care of. But then this back half of the hand is also really important to take care of. So if I'm getting tied up doing some sort of a fancy lock here, what's stopping him from punching me in the head, right? Right? I'm going to get punched or slapped or grabbed or something. So I have to be able to take care of both of these concepts at once, both of these tools, right? So I might have caught him here, but I might also target the hand, which is also something that John mentioned earlier. So here's Jackson's hand. If I'm not taking care of the hand, he could hit me or grab me, right? So as I've controlled this, I kill the hand, I kill the elbow, I kill the hand, right? I kill it again, right? I'm hitting it hard. So I'm taking it out of the game. So that's, I'm defanging this snake, but at the same time, I could be defanging this snake, right? So there's a disarm, right? So just in the flow here, here's another disarm, right? Bang. In the flow, here's another disarm. Right? Just pick that up. So the disarming can lead me into Escrido. If I disarm Jackson here, I could go for a highlight lock here, right? A head lock or a neck lock. If I'm here and I've locked Jackson, I could throw him from here. I could also convert this into a strangle here too, right? So I could throw him or I could disarm him from here, right? Both the same. I'm here. I've flowed through. So this could be a disarm, which would be here, or exact same move. This could be an Escrido where I put him down on his knees, right? So I'm flowing with Jackson here. I lock in, and this could be a takedown. I could jump his head and turn this into a throw here off the neck as well. I can go deep and turn this into an arm crank. I can turn this into an arm neck crank. I can put him down on his knees here really quick. Just come over this way a little, Jackson. Sorry. Go down. Go down. There we go. So if I slam his head and pick up, I've got him in a full strangle or a full choke here, right, with the stick. Another concept is the C-clamp concept where I'm locking in on his arm, right? So I'm using the compression lock and really putting a vice-like grip on his wrist there, right? I'm here, Jackson grabs my stick, right? Now we're in a wrestling match, right? He's grabbed a hold of my stick. What do, right? So if I let go here and try and do something, what happens? He hits me, right? So I've got to maintain this. So I break off and counterattack, right? And I could end up with a Escrido or whatever. He's grabbed the stick halfway up, right? So he's halfway up the stick now. So the move I just tried doesn't work. So I continue to control him. Again, if I don't control this, he hits me, right? I control this, I break out, and I'm countering him. He's grabbed the fore end of my stick, right? So I break him off and I get his hand off there. I've got both sticks, right? This concept too is that I'm using the stick as a whole weapon, so I'm using the butt end and the fore end and the tip, etc. But I can also go two hands on the one weapon, right? So this is particularly good if someone's trying to shoot on you or come in on you. This two-handed grip here can be very good for if Jackson's closing the gap on me, I can steer him offline here, right? Using this steering action. I can jam down on his neck. If he's shooting it from my legs, jamming down on the neck, etc. So this close range striking system, you know, as I said, this is all about control. I'm not hitting Jackson. I might sting him in the ribs a little, but he's not getting broken. But I'm keeping it as real as I can with what I'm doing. Right? So that's kind of roughly sort of the way everything works. So the close range concept, the Corto Kubada, the Wutik striking, many different angles of attack. I never attack one line again. I don't keep doing this, right? Because Jackson picks up on that straight away. He's going to grab me, right? So I attack and I change. I'm always changing. It's always changing. And then I'm always focusing on this. I'm keeping this in control. I'm ready to disarm and continue to counter. So that's sort of roughly kind of sort of the way it works in a mini demo.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There you go.
John,
Yes.
you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, yes, there's just a little bit of a few couple of techniques. So I have to bring with me my student Stephen Bulhart, so we can demonstrate some of the schema.
I'm gonna have to hide ourselves again.
That's the best part. When they do demos.
So here we have Stephen Bulhart. So just in add to the about close range answer, it's about elusiveness of your right hand. So if he will grab, try to grab my right hand, it will escape and hit the head, the face. So this is what we say control, because I cannot afford to hit his head or face every day. So he gonna suffer on that. So in about with the techniques, conversions, locking, you have to develop a certain setup. So for example, if they attack, he block. So he can block this way. So if he could block, I have to change my angle of attack. So if I attack this way, he will block or he will parry. See, if I attack, he will parry. See, the left hand will parry. The left hand try to control my right hand. That's after hitting the head. If I hit the head, then the left hand starts to control my right hand. He wants to control my right hand. So if I will attack this way, I make his left hand follow my right hand by stick, and that is a setup because I got a big strike to the head, to the face. So that could be make the fight over. So that is the how do we try to apply in close range? Sit up, sitting up your opponent. Also, like if, for example, I want to do, we have here number 7 disarming techniques. So this is number 7. We attack a forehand strike to the waist, and we make this kind of disarming techniques. So in this case, I'm controlling here now his thumb. It's difficult for you to see, but I'm controlling his thumb. So he cannot get to his stick. If I will do like this, it's gonna bring him down. It's very painful for his wrist. It's simple but very effective. So how do you apply that in close quarter sparring? So if I'm attacking his head, see, hit the head at the same time. Now I'm applying this kind of disarming lock. This one, the stick, it goes there. Okay. So if I go like this, I disarm. So this is a setup. For example, if I do like this, I have also to show my body language. Body language is pretending to attack a big strike. If I will attack him like this, if I am doing like this, body language, body motion. So he will definitely block my attack, block my strike. So it's a setup because I want him to block in a way. I want him, that is what I want to do. I want him to block. By blocking there, now I can lock his fingers. I can apply finger lock. So that's how it works. From here, changing the direction, it goes here. Now I grab his left hand. I can apply throws or arm cracking this way. So this is the setup. I'm controlling this one, controlling the right hand. If he will fight back, he will strike, bam, strike to the head. See, if I don't able to block that one because it's control. It doesn't touch to the head. Sometimes it touches, sometimes not. If I don't manage to block, to defend myself, I have to recognize that. For me, like for example, if he hit my head back, control, it doesn't touches my head, I have to recognize it as a hit. I have to improve my skills. So it's not necessarily that I have to hit his head hard for him to recognize my strike. So as you go along, when he strike back, he will fight. Then you're trying to control his weapon hand. So try to control his weapon hand always. And becoming make the right hand independent. We have to develop left hand, right hand, develop their own minds. The right hand work, and the left hand also do is a defense technique. And here, right? There. Say controlling. So from here, I attack his head. With his attack back, I drop, and I scope to control his right hand. So it could not be like I'm hitting him and he's hitting me back. It's impossible. You cannot do that. You have to develop your defense techniques 100%. So if you attack on the other side, I'm blocking that. One, if you got hit to the head, you attack on the other side, I have to block again. So without the presence of my left hand, I use right hand to defend myself. If I have my left hand here, hitting it, remove it, I use my right hand to take over. So it's a sit up here. This is now the last. From here. I attack, he miss it. Purposely, I do a change angle of attack to miss the party or block my strike. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
It's like playing chess.
I love it. I love it. So not now with the really awesome questions by Chad, but GM John Mack, thank you very much. That I really enjoyed that.
Thank you so
kind of
much.
understanding what's going on,
So
even
beautiful.
with the lag, it's so beautiful. Even with the slight lag, like how you're able to set up the wrist and then the thumb, and then you did the Corto Kubada strikes, and then you did a midline strike to his ribs, and then to the back to the top of the head. That was really cool.
Yeah, very nice. All right. So Chad Bailey's questions. He sent me a couple of questions. Some are for both of you. Some are for only Grandmaster John Mack, if I'm not mistaken. So let's start with your questions, Grandmaster John Mack. First question from Chad Bailey. He trained, by the way, I think from what he told me, he went to the Cacoy Doce Pares HQ and he did train with Cacoy Canete himself. So first question, of course, okay, I'm just going to read what he sent me, okay? Of course, ask about he's being Cacoy's senior sparring partner for many years. What was your biggest takeaway from this, Grandmaster John Mack? What was your biggest takeaway from being Cacoy's senior sparring partner for many years?
Yes, as I have told you earlier, I am the receiving end here in Cebu. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the process, the techniques in Escrima, and also the Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete. He has always the vision 20 years ahead. Always he has the vision, and he has the ambition to prove to develop the certain goal. So that is the evolution in Escrima. So as the receiving end, one of the example is he asked me to protect my right kidney. And he asked me, John, protect your right kidney at all time. Okay, sir. Are you ready? Yes, sir. So he just hit my kidney all over any angles. I cannot stop. I cannot defend. I cannot block it. And that is a message. It's not about the techniques. It's a message that you have to find ways. You have to research for yourself. You have to look different different probabilities that you can achieve the goal. So that's only one message. And from that on, I like to study different one technique in different applications in different angles. So that is a very big part on my side as I learned from him. Thank you very much.
Did we lose Martin?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening to Martin, but do you have anything to add, sir, while we're waiting for Martin?
I think sometimes one of the greatest lessons that I learned from SGM Cacoy, I mean, if you sat John and I down for hours and spoke to us, we'd come up with 100 different lessons. But I think one of the greatest lessons from my point of view would be the fact that his mindset, as John was saying, was always on the future, but his mindset was the only constant within Escrima is change. It's always evolving, always changing. So one of SGM's great attributes was that he was always embarking on research and development, always researching and development, and always changing if it needed to change. So if you sparred with him a few times and you started to think, okay, I know how to beat him on this thing, I'll try this time. You'll try that new thing, and he's already figured out a way to counter that, you know. And that's the thing is this incredible ability to sort of morph from one phase to another and back again, and then over here, and then here, and then here, and then here, like just an endless sort of patchwork of changes that were possible. And you know, he might do this particular strike towards you as an opener. You see this strike coming, you're going to defend it a certain way, and then it arrives on a different angle. It's always an indirect attack or a progressive indirect attack. This comes and then something else arrives. This comes and it goes somewhere else. This comes and it becomes something completely different. And then you're aware, well, once he does that move, he's going to try and grab my hand. So as soon as he does that move, I'm going to move my hand so he can't grab it. Then he doesn't do that. He grabs this hand and then grabs this hand. You know, it's like an endless number of, like, you think you're smart because you're ahead of him, but you're not, because he's already thought of the counter to your counter.
He was like JKD before there was even a JKD methodology. Essentially, is what you're saying. That's PIA, progressive indirect attack, and he had it all kind of figured out back then because he was always thinking about applicability. And that's actually what I was going to ask before we get into Chad Bailey's question. While we're waiting for Martin, because I want him to ask that list to Chad, is the Pakamut aspect of the Cacoy Doce Pares style. Obviously, there's the Escrido, which has combat judo in it, right? And then there is that the boxing that he integrated. The Pakamut, is that like a nativist style essentially that they had, you know, even before? It's like an archaic form of fighting, you know, with blades and empty hand.
Well, Pakamut. Kamot, so it's actually a combination of two words, pang and kamot. Kamot is hand in Visayan, and pang means skillful hand, right? You also have, so that's usually the locks, controls, throws, and holds, right? Even chokeouts. There's another part to the pangamot, which would be called kilat kamot, which is lightning hand, which is more like silat, you know, striking and elbows, headbutts, shears, knees, all that kind of stuff. Then there's, you know, an old time name for stick fighting or weaponry fighting was pangolisi, skillful, and olisi meaning stick.
Olisi.
Pangolisi, pangamot, kilat kamot. You know, these are all words that are old time references to these fighting arts, either with weapons or with empty hands. So there were sort of two sides to the coin with the pangamot. The pangamot could be very defensive, which is usually the pangamot, and the kilat kamot was offensive, quite offensive. So, but it's similar to the Escrima in that you don't necessarily want to give your opponent any breathing room. You make sure that once you start, you finish, you know. So you don't try and take somebody out with one hit. You take them out with a combination of 6 strikes from all different angles, elbows, knees, headbutts, etc. You know.
I'm gonna try to synthesize all of Chad Bailey's questions into like sizable bites while we're waiting for Martin, because I don't know when he's gonna come back, because he should just click the link, but he said he got the blue screen of death in his computer, so that's not very cool. Oh, there he is.
He's back.
He's back. There you are. Yeah. Yeah, there you are. Martin, go ahead. You can ask Chad's questions now, man. I was waiting.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. Was
you got me worried for a second there.
All right. Okay. So I heard most of the first answer. Let's go to the second question. You can hear me well now? Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
Okay. So second question for John Mack from Chad Bailey. Sorry, Chad. The Mack attack is a 12-strike pattern by John Mack. What was the catalyst for this drill? What was your intention with the pattern? Is it to set up future strikes?
Okay, thank you, Chad, for that questions. My inspiration is from the what the late Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete says, that the only constant is Creamer's change. That's what the senior Grandmaster Anthony explained. So that is my inspiration. And he always, every time we meet, then he asked me, John, change your style. But I could not change my style. He's not teaching me to change it. He's just saying it, change your style. Then one day, we are practicing at the dojo. It's only always between me and him. Then he always says, he discovered a new technique. He's like, oh, this is new one. This is new technique. Then when I look and investigate the techniques, it's not different. For me, it's the same. So but for him, it's new technique. Then after a day, and then, oh, thank God, it's another new technique. When I try to look at it and investigate the techniques, for me, it's the same. Nothing changed. Then one day before he left for San Jose for a seminar, one day before he left, and he told me, John, this is all the new techniques. Then I felt the energy, the movements were changed. So that at that moment, at that on, I could see, yes, you cannot change your style, your techniques. Then I need to dig something. I need to find ways that I could change myself, because I felt it. He let me feel how to change the energy, the movements. So my first question is how to change my style, how to change my techniques. Then he is my inspiration. He is my mentor, my instructor. I want to move the same as him. I want to play Screama as the same as him. So I have to mimic him. Then every time we spar, every time we play, he can demonstrate hundreds, thousands of techniques in just few minutes. So I have to take these combinations one by one. So for example, in the first day, I was like, oh, I like that combination. Then after a while, oh, another very good and nice combinations. I like that. Then after a while, oh, new combinations again. I like that. At the end, I learned nothing. So I have to change it. Like, okay, I don't mind. In the first combinations I learned, I will just keep it. I don't care about the rest. So the first combinations I like, I take notes. At that time, I don't have a video camera. I cannot capture it. So I just have to write down in a notebook. So on this day, I like this combination. I don't care about the rest. Otherwise, I will forget everything. So I accumulated 12 sets of combinations. So that is for myself. I want to learn, and that is how I want to develop that kind of moves. And I know the combinations, I know the purpose, I know the techniques, how it works. So as a instructor at the Cacoy Doce Pares, I need also this to share to others if they come to headquarters, and the screamer around the world, they try to adopt these new combinations, and uh, and that was it. That is the how they call it, mat attack. Thank you.
Cool. Now, 3 more questions from Chad Bailey. Those are for both of you guys. First one, again, I'm just going to read what he sent me. So Chad is talking. When I sparred with Cacoy, I always felt he was 4 to 5 moves ahead of me. Closest I could get was 2 to 3 moves behind him. Did you experience this?
Yeah, I think we experience that every time. But I think one of the really important things to realize is that a lot of what SGM Cacoy did wasn't necessarily related to thinking moves ahead. Sometimes it was just his grasp of principle and concept was so strong that he just adapted on the fly to what was happening. So there was many times when maybe he does a counter on me and I would say, "Sir, how did you do that? Can you show that to me again?" And I'd try and replicate it, and he'd do something different. And then you try and replicate it and something different, because every time we tried to replicate it, I might do something slightly different, or his position might be slightly different, and then the reaction would be different.
Because it was all reflex. It was all reflex.
Yeah. And that's why I liken a lot of what he did to like boxing, being a superb in-close boxer, because a boxer isn't necessarily thinking in terms of, I'll use the number 4 combination. He's thinking often he'll see an opening and hit it, he'll see an opening and hit it, just reflexively, instinctively hit it, And Cacoy did a lot of that. You would move and you'd leave an opening, and that's where the stick would come, You'd move and you'd leave an opening, and that's where the stick would come, right up under your chin or whatever. And I think a lot of it was he just had this superb level of ability to. So what seemed like he was moves ahead was the fact that it didn't matter what you did, he could counter what you did.
Yeah. Anything to add, Grandmaster John Mack?
I think that's yes. Mas Anthony explained well for that one, but yeah, he's right. The movements he has very unique counter attack of your movements. Very unique, because I watched them as well playing with Senior Grandmaster Ranlu, and Grandmaster Ranlu is like a Kung Fu expert, and very good in sensitivity drills, sensitivity movements. Always also has a very good of anticipations, can read your movements. So I really watch them playing or sparring, but he always come up in a different weird counter attack, weird techniques. So for me, yes, this is very well explained by Grandmaster Anthony. He's just it's a gift. It's a gift how to manage it, which cannot be copied. It's difficult to copy it.
Cool. Okay, Chad Beatty talking here. Advice on sparring progressions. Just go for it or build up through levels?
Always levels.
Always levels.
So that's sometimes what John and I both faced at different times when guys come into the gym. You'll sometimes find guys who want to be, they want to be, I don't know, they either want to beat you or me, or they want to show how good they are right now. And that energy, that sort of high level of energy will basically, if you did that to Cacoy, it'd be a rough day. Well, I think the same applies to, if you do that to John or to me, it ends up being a rough day, because we're not necessarily going to be your sparring dummy and let you beat us. We're going to, if you try and attack us, we're going to defend. So, and the only way you can learn to do that safely, or in a curve that lets you learn and develop, is you have to approach it from the point of view of incrementally increasing. And that's kind of the same thing with a lot of the drills. Like I'm slightly referring back to an earlier question, which was, we might start off a basic drill, which is, I know what I'm doing and you know what I'm doing. So that the drill that is, all the elements of that drill are known. It's known to me and it's known to you as my opponent, then as my partner. Then the next level of the drill is that I know what I'm doing, and then there's a couple of variables come into play. And then as you go to the next level, there's more variables. And then the way I start off can have variables, and the way you respond can have variables. And it basically gets looser and looser as it goes until it becomes, there's nothing prescribed. It's just freestyle movement. But if you're going to try and go for freestyle movement right out of the gate, it's going to get rough and you're not going to learn much, because too much is happening. So you need there's a progressive way of learning. Yeah. So exactly, Chad. There's you drill in a way that is structured initially, and you start breaking the structure down more and more and more till you get to this place of freedom. So the best drills that we have, I believe, in Cacoy Doce Pares are the ones that encourage you to go from structure to semi-structure to free. And that's where you really do your spontaneous learning from.
Cool. And last questions from Chad Bailey. Will either of you, as senior grandmasters in Cacoy Doce Pares, be traveling and doing seminars? Hint: seminar in Miami, maybe. I think he wants a seminar.
I'd love to come down to Miami and do a seminar. My first seminar for this year, I mean, obviously, every single one of us is in the same boat. Last year was a complete wash. Nothing happened. I had a bunch of seminars arranged and it all fell through. So my first seminar is going to be in August in Oregon. And I've got a couple of online seminars that are coming up as well, which are, I prefer doing the live seminar as opposed to an online seminar. But my first one's going to be in August, and then I'm trying to put something together for Pennsylvania. I'm trying to put something together for Washington and for Southern down in San Diego as well. But nothing's set in stone at the moment. But I'd love to come down that way. I just haven't got any irons in the fire right now,
What about you, Grandmaster John Mack? Any seminars soon?
Well, one of our biggest problem is our visa is always get rejected. So it's difficult for us to secure visa to conduct seminar abroad. So once we can get a visa, then probably only once every 2 years or once in a year. This coming August, I got invited by someone in Luxembourg, not a seminar, but just for his personal training. But at the moment, I could not, all the documents is not yet done. Like the biggest factor is the vaccination. And you cannot travel without a vaccination certificate. So that is the biggest factor. And at the moment, I'm still waiting for my first vaccine shot, so I cannot travel. So I think I have to move that by next year.
I see. Chad Bailey is asking in the comments, where in Oregon?
Hillsborough, just like Portland, basically, Portland area.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Julius, that's all for my questions, man.
And because here's the thing, I don't want to ask Mike, because we're pushing at 99 minutes now. We're like at 100 minutes. I mean, I don't want Dean to like have to edit. If there's anything you guys want to talk about, that's fine. You pretty much answered my historical questions, and maybe a question I should ask should be more in private, because people don't want to talk about esoteric stuff around here. Let's just try to keep it nuts and bolts FMA. But if there's anything else you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
I think I'd like to say that I think Escrima, and particularly what we do with Cacoy Doce Pares, is a very vital and alive combat and training system. And I think as senior members, we have a feeling that we really want to try and propagate and develop what we do further. So what I see for the future of what we do is that not only will we keep advancing things like sport Escrima, for example, we're also taking what we have and using it for practical tactical, which is again an obvious one. But another area that I've started to work on recently, one of my long-term students was diagnosed several years ago with Parkinson's disease. And I'm starting to use Escrima concepts and principles in helping him to maintain a functional level of movement and ability. And so far, it's been working very well. So I think sometimes on the surface, what we see in the arts that we practice, the most obvious stuff is the sports or the combative or the demonstration or exhibition. But there are deeper things that are going on here, you know. So when I first went to headquarters in 1988 and I got to train, SGM Cacoy's eldest brother, Yoling, was still alive at the time. And he used to sit with me every night at training. Between sparring, I'd sit down on the bench and drink some water. He'd sit next to me and talk to me. And he would always say, you know, you must always do your basic stick drills every day. Always practice, always move, you know. And the thing I can comment about him was that even as a very old man, he was 88 years of age, he stood as straight as a soldier. He moved with perfect coordination. And the way his body moved was just he had this real rhythmical, easy flow about him. So as an older man, that really impressed me. That really stuck in my head. So some of what we practice in the Filipino martial arts, and I'm talking from the point of view of somebody who's been heavily involved with Cacoy Doce Pares, what we train is bigger than what we initially see, you know, so it's reaches further. And, you know, and Cacoy himself was testament to that, you know. He trained from when he was a very small boy until the day he died, essentially, and he never stopped training. And he had a saying, which was, I said to him when I first met him in the 80s, maybe 86, and I was really enthusiastic, and I was saying, Grandmaster Cacoy, when did you realize you were so great? Or, you know, when did you achieve this level of perfection? And he said, I'm still climbing my Everest, you know.
Wow.
In other words, from his point of view, he never stopped learning and he never stopped gaining and never stopped training and never stopped progressing. He was, even as an old man, he still was looking on the uphill. He was heading uphill, you know. I think that's a really important thing too, because it's really easy when you train in a system for a long time, it doesn't matter what it is, Filipino martial arts or it doesn't matter. It does any martial arts system or whatever. When you become a kind of a bigwig of a kind, it's really important to remember that you haven't really achieved anything. You're just a good practitioner of what you do. You know, you're not some god or some fantastic being or anything else. There's nothing esoteric or super special about you. You're just very good at what you do, and hopefully, you have the ability to connect with people, bring them into what you do. And that way you help to propagate and develop further. So I believe that the Filipino martial arts that we practice, they're as valid today, in this day and age, 21st century, as they were 1,000 years ago. And the only thing that's changed is the date. And you know, we live in a time in which technology and, you know, our ability to be remote from each other and communicate and interact with each other is really great. But the Filipino martial arts and the way we practice is critical. It's just as important today as it was 1,000 years ago. As I said, only the date has changed, and it's a critical skill set that's going to carry us as humans in the future years. You know, because this one of the things that we've seen show up in the COVID period was a lot of people were having problems with mental health. Right, mental health became an issue for many people. And so these arts, these ancient arts, these martial arts that we practice, they're much deeper than just some sort of a sporting kind of a thing, or some kind of a recreation, or some kind of a fighting concept or whatever. Much deeper than that. They're much more about letting us be fulfilled as human beings. So that's what I think.
I agree.
You try to finish it off, GM John Mack.
Yes, he has the ability to change and adapt the situations. So as he grow older, he changed all his moves and techniques. So I remember one time during our session at the headquarters, and he's sitting down on the bench, and one of the guy visit him and ask him, "How could you defend yourself against a punch?" Then I was shocked because the guy immediately threw him a punch, so like a hook this way. Then in my mind, I thought that he's going to react to punch him back because he's used to be a boxer. So I think that his reactions, but it's not. He bob and weave and grab the neck of the guy and apply a choke. Then I could see the neck of the Grandmaster is like this, like a cobra, like the power like this. Then at few seconds, he released it. The guy throw up outside of the dojo.
He got his answer.
So it's really powerful and very strong hold. So yes, in a way that Grandmaster always change ways how to approach and deal with the different kind of attacks as he grow older.
I think it's Supreme Grandmaster Cacoy Canete that said the only constant in Escrima is change, right? And that's pretty much what you just said. I think it's him who said that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty much what you just said. It's exactly that. Yeah.
I mean, since he lived such a long time.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Since he's lived such a long time and started so young, he had that 10,000 out. He has that 10,000 hours of practice, but orders of magnitude. Because they talk about Malcolm Gladwell will talk about 10,000 hours of practice would be like the basic levels of mastery, right?
Sure.
He had that like exponential because like he lived such a long time, and all he did every day was so.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, sir.
No, that's okay. One of the things that Cacoy would also say is that he would look at martial arts that didn't want to evolve or didn't want to change, So sometimes you look at some really traditional arts and they practice exactly the way they did, in old times. And Cacoy would look at those arts and he would say things like, my art is a living system. But if you want to practice an antique, don't change, Don't evolve, don't change. Then you'll be practicing an antique martial art, a museum piece.
Makes sense.
Well, we're gonna close up, and thank you very much for the evening.
Guys, thank you so much. That was a great honor, honestly.
It's one of a very informative episode, to be sure. I mean, that might be the first time we had 2 demos, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because it's a chief second, but like not like 2 GMs actually doing. I mean, quote me if I'm wrong. This is how I remember.
Yeah, I think so.
But
pretty
thank
great.
you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So,
appreciate it.
We'll be Xing out. So.
And
okay,
Grandmaster John, Grandmaster John Mack, please say hi to Miko and Chuck for me, please. They're so nice. They're such nice people. Thank you.
Yes, I will do. Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting.
So that should conclude our episode 161 here at FMA discussion. This is really the first intensive, really Doce Pares episode. And I'm not being critical because we had Chad Bailey, a progressive artista, but I really think this is the first one that was like a deep dive onto it.
I think so. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It was fun for sure, and although I knew some of the stuff because I researched that system a lot. And like I said, it was the first time I did, but they enlightened me on so many stuff, and their demo, I mean, Come on, it was so slick.
I mean, here's the thing. Even though there was lag, clearly because of the connection, you see what they're trying to do. Because like it would kind of like we were playing a game, and there would be like ping or game lag, but then you're seeing like he did a Corto Kubada to the forehead, then he hit it to the ribs, and then hit to the kidney, then went back to the forehead.
We could actually see what they were doing instead of being like.
Yeah, it was so cool. Like it's like the setups were so good.
Yeah.
For the future, we have an episode, so we're just doing this back and forth. We're like really trying to do Joe Rogan style now. We're like trying to pump one every like day or every other day. It seems got hard dang. Episode 162 is gonna be Guru Louis Lindo. So that's gonna be a very interesting one because this uno dos tres de campo general and then KI as well. So it'd be a very good it's kind of like a synthesis, like very similar to Edgar because he did De Campo and KI, and it would be very interesting to get Guru Louis Lindo's his own take, his own synthesis of that, because I mean he's a different person. Like we're all like different people, very unique approach to Eskrima. You have a unique approach to Eskrima, as I do, and we all kind of have different backgrounds. And I really enjoyed doing this with you, Martin. I hope we do more duo episodes. And it's because it's cool because you have a background in Doce Pares and now you're doing PTK. Yeah. So I think I hope that when we keep on doing those type of interviews, primarily Doce Pares and PTK, but not just those, that I always team up with you.
That would be cool. I would like that. I had fun, man.
I didn't get to add the thing because they were talking about rhythm in the episode. He was like training tempo. I was like, God damn, I didn't say it. I was gonna say they try to pull the Filipino and Quebecois thing. They couldn't handle my rhythm because we say it the same way, man. We say it the same way.
Hey, are we still live? We're still live. I just want to shout out the Quebecers out here. It's our national day today, so happy National Day, Quebecers, French Canadians here. So that's it. That's the rhythm.
All right, Martin. I'm gonna cut the live feed.
All right.